does. So.
Oh, good. That's a good way to start this. This is Geeked Out. In our first episode, we watched Zack Snyder's Justice League, released in 2021, starring Ben Affleck, Gal Gadot, Ezra Miller, Jason Momoa, Henry Cavill, Ray Fisher, Amy Adams. This list just keeps going. Jeremy Irons, Diane Lane, directed by Zack Snyder.
It was good.
I don't think it was good. This movie was... It was hard to get through.
Yeah, definitely. It has its moments, but it definitely takes itself way too seriously. It wants you to believe that it's as epic as it is. I think it's just a pretentious movie, to be honest. A lot of its tone, at least.
I think the problem is in my opinion, a lot of Zack Snyder movies are like that. Like, even if you look at things like 300 and Watchmen, everything is so dark and serious. And
yeah. I definitely noticed Zack Snyder's directing style watching this movie, because I definitely recognized 300 and Watchmen and Sucker Punch. All of his other movies have the same kind of style. Heavily noticed in this movie. It kind of just made me realize how formulaic, or at least how he treats his movies, are very much the same way.
Well, and I mean, even in the scene where it's the whatever they refer to as the Age of Heroes scene, where it's all the Atlanteans and Amazons and all that coming together with the gods, and if you take one look at the guy who's supposed to be playing Zeus and the way his character designed, he might as well just be Leonidas.
Yeah, for sure.
From 300, and it's like right down to the wearing almost like not a leotard, a loincloth type thing, and
like
a
half cape, like a toga kind of.
It just
thing.
that I will say there are good things about this movie.
Oh yeah, I like that scene. That Darkseid intro scene to me was good, only because you got lanterns and you got the Atlanteans and
it was a good
Amazonians. You had that team up.
Yeah, it was
awesome.
It was well choreographed, and it was interesting to see.
Good
it's
shot, and the use of the slow mo, at
God.
least in this part, at least with Zeus showing his powers, the slow mo in that scene, at least it enhanced it for me. It made me like that scene.
The slow mo in that scene made sense,
especially with the lightning powers, right, of Zeus.
Yeah, that all made sense, but I feel that while we're on the topic of that, I mean, it's a Zack Snyder movie, so there's going to be a ton of slow motion. We were looking it up, and I looked it up before while we were watching the movie, and it was, what did it say, 24 minutes and something out of a 4-hour movie is utilized as slow motion. That is
slow motion should have been one of the cast members.
Oh, absolutely.
That's how much slow mo is in this movie. That's how predominant slow mo is in this movie. Like, it should have been listed as one of the cast members.
Yeah,
at least every single scene at least had slow mo at some point, which was insane to me. I've never seen that in a movie.
No,
where it was completely unnecessary to have slow motion, and they just put it in there.
It's like it was relied on as a crutch for certain things. Like,
oh yeah, I definitely believe.
And
that.
I mean, there are parts where I wouldn't even say it's necessary, but there are parts that it works.
Yeah,
it might not be required, but it can enhance a scene. But for the majority of the usage in this movie, I think it really hurts and it hinders the experience of what you're watching.
Yeah, of course. Where it works is Wonder Woman's intro scene, where she has to stop that suitcase bomb from exploding, which I don't really believe the hijackers or the terrorists' motivations. They just want a chaotic world. Okay, whatever. So that use of slow motion to me is perfect. It made that scene that much better because she has 11 seconds to take care of this bomb. So to stretch out the scene, of course, you're going to use a slow mo.
Yeah.
Because it makes sense. Other than that, aside from again the Dark Side intro scene with Zeus, I don't see any reason for slow mo other than like the Flash parts as well. Like,
well, that's because you can't.
Because that's obvious.
You can't. See, you won't be able to see
Exactly.
anything. It would just be a blur. But
anything else? No, I don't really see the use.
I will say the one scene that I really enjoyed. Okay, maybe enjoy is not the right word. That I thought it was a good use
like
of the slow mo. Apart from that opening scene, that opening Age of Heroes scene was when Superman puts on the black suit and they zoom in on his hand, like his fist on the rock, and it's kind of levitating everything around it in slow mo. Like,
yeah,
he's really realizing this is what I need to do. This is what my powers are.
And to me, it cheapens the moment in Man of Steel where he did that exact thing, and he realized how important he is to, I guess, humanity or the world or whatever. When he flies off and starts flying around the world, Africa and stuff, it kind of takes away from that scene because
I don't know if I'd say it takes away from it
I
because
mean, it's like they already did that scene. It's like we've been there and done that.
They did already do it, but the thing is with this movie, because he's now been resurrected and come back to life, it's like he's realizing that for a second time. Almost like because when he comes back in this movie, I think this scene is ridiculous when he does, but the first thing he does is attack the very people that have resurrected him.
Yeah, it's like just because he lost his memories, his default is evil.
Exactly, and that doesn't
individual.
make a whole lot of sense for what I know to be of Superman. But I think that when he loses, like when he is brought back and he's starting to regain these memories and realization of what the powers he has are, I think that's why, for me, it's more effective. Because it's like reliving that scene in Man of Steel, but in this whole new context of he's realizing it in a time where he needs to be the hero as opposed to discovering who he is.
Yeah.
If that makes sense.
Yeah, and it kind of is a callback to the fact that Lois Lane is the key because Lois Lane is the one that
calms him down.
Exactly. And if she wasn't there, then who knows how much damage he would have caused. You know what I mean? He could have at least started that path of that nightmare sequence that happens later on in the movie.
Yeah, absolutely.
You know what I mean?
So another thing that I still, while we're on the topic of Superman, I love Henry Cavill's portrayal of Superman.
I respect it. To me, Christopher Reeves is the blueprint to which all actors who take on that responsibility of Superman definitely need to take and study how he did it.
Well, now I'll be completely honest. Now I've told you this before. I've never actually watched any of the original Superman movies. I've tried on multiple occasions.
He hates DC.
I don't hate DC. I've always been,
or Superman at least. He's not a big.
I've always disliked
hopeful, positive characters.
I've always disliked Superman more. There's been a lot of things that I've disliked about Superman.
A lot of people. The thing is, like, Superman is always, when you're a young kid, he's always
too perfect.
But he's also like a young kid's favorite superhero, at least because he's the first. You know what I mean? He's super powerful. But as you get older, you start to you understand how, not everyone can be as perfect as Superman. So you start to get closer to like a Batman or any other character that isn't as pure as Superman.
Well, I mean, so that could be another reason why I like Henry Cavill so much, is he's really the first version of Superman, aside from the great Dean Cain, that I've been a big fan of because I mean, growing up, I watched a ton of Lois and Clark,
Yeah.
but now, and I mean, you know this because we've talked about this a lot, but recently I've started watching Smallville from the early 2000s, and I had never watched it when it came out, again, because I wasn't really into Superman. But now
Makes
that
sense.
I've been watching that, I have a much higher appreciation for the character that Superman is, and I think a lot of that is just watching that type of. Yeah, we were talking about that, but unfortunately we lost. Had some problems with the audio, so hopefully this is working now. And as I was saying, recently watching Smallville, it's been nice to see that humble type upbringing of Superman, and I don't know. I just it's given me a whole new respect for the character and the way he's portrayed, and things like that. I don't know.
Yeah, yeah, definitely. Smallville is a good show that respected Superman and his origins, especially like yeah, the parents. I personally like Ma and Pop Kent version in Smallville compared to the Man of Steel versions. At least the Paul Kent, I just it really bothered me. Even though Kevin Costner can do no wrong in my eyes, how they had him in Man of Steel portraying Paul Kent was completely out of character, and that's one of my biggest gripes with Zack Snyder's DC characters. Is they're not one sick. They're all heroic at the end of the day. Obviously, they're superheroes, but their personalities aren't even close to how their personalities are in the animated shows and the cartoons. And I personally compare every single DC live action to its animated counterpart.
Well, it's hard not to compare things like that
It is hard.
because you grow like
And it's
we
not yeah, and it's not going to be a direct
no, but
translation, but you can at least get why we like these characters is because of their personalities. It's what draws us to these characters. So by changing their character, especially Wonder Woman, I love Wonder Woman, but how they had her in the Jenkins
yep, Patty
ver-
Jenkins.
version, she was Superman. She had Superman's personality, and
Yeah,
she has a shade of that. Mind you, she is heroic. She does save lives, but there's savagery. There's no savagery with Wonder Woman. And even in this movie, she's definitely heroic, but there's no savageness.
it's just righteousness.
It is righteousness, and that's what Wonder Woman, at least some of her personality, is that she's an Amazon who has trained thousands of years to kill her enemies. She should be a savage.
Yeah,
At least at least have that trait in her personality.
absolutely. But like you say, comparing things to
Yeah,
animated
I know that's
series
my
and
problem. That's
well,
my personal
but
problem
you know what? It's hard not to do that because you and I grew up.
with honestly,
We grew up through the '90s where we had Justice League
yeah,
cartoon, Batman the animated series, Spider Man, Superman, all these different superhero and comic book TV shows, and we were at an age where that's exactly what we just
that's what we expect.
latched onto, and we all fell in love with it. I mean, at least I know me and my friends, all the time we were talking about the new episodes of Spider Man and Batman and all these other things, and then when we finally get to this point where it's like, yeah, you're gonna see these characters live action on the movie screen and this and that.
Yeah,
It's like
you expect it
you
to
expect
be
it to be
yeah,
one way, and when it's not, you can still appreciate it. It's just not what you wanted and what you hoped it would be sometimes.
which is disappointing. And if it is disappointing to you, which is a fan of the true, at least the character that you grew up with, it's going to be likewise to many, 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 many people. And I get it. There's lots of people who like these versions of the characters because that's what they grew up with, and it's all about the
It's
character.
perspective.
It's perspective. But it seems like with this movie, every character is has there's no hope. There's zero hope with almost everything. Every single of these characters has some is going through some type of deep depression or some type of just sad dark. They have like each character has like a dark Charlie Brown cloud over them.
Yeah,
You know what I mean?
absolutely.
And it's like these characters are supposed to give us hope, especially Superman. So
Well,
you know,
especially considering the Zack Snyder version of Superman, the logo stands for hope,
exactly.
according to him. Now, like you and I had said this earlier, I've always heard that was, as you had pointed out as well, the family crest of his
Yeah, the House
family
of
on
L. Yeah.
Krypton, the House of L. But then you watch Man of Steel, and it's, oh, this means this is the symbol of hope. Well,
Yeah,
which one is it? I mean, if this is a character that you've created on your own, you can make it symbolize whatever the hell you want.
exactly.
But if you're working off of a source material, I understand changing things and doing things here and there that are a little different, but to completely erase something that these people who created this character came up with and chose to do, I feel that's very disrespectful to the character and to the people who created said character.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I get it. You wanted to make a realistic Superman.
You
That,
can't make a realistic Superman about
but
an
that's
alien who's
yeah. And the thing about it is,
who's come down
yeah,
and he's a super powered god man
exactly.
basically.
But you can make him
Relatable.
irrelevant. Exactly. He was raised by small town, good-hearted people.
I mean, I don't think it
Those people
gets.
exist. Like those people definitely exist in
Oh,
Kansas. So
absolutely, they
like
exist all over the world.
you don't have to make him like I guess in his vision realistic it means not saving people, but in my eyes it can be because there are good people that live on the planet. Like there are good hearted people.
Oh, 100% there are.
So doing that change just seems like they're doing it just to make a change.
Yeah.
So they were different.
Well, what? Now we'll try and move. We'll move off. I'll move off Superman for a minute.
Yeah, for sure.
What is your opinion on the other members of said Justice League? Now, in my opinion, I'm going to state this right away. Like, I think that everybody at DC, not just Zack Snyder, not Joss Whedon, nothing like that. Everybody as a whole has massively screwed up this whole thing with the DCEU.
Yeah, definitely.
They because the MCU had gotten so big to the point where they were starting to come out with their big Avengers movies and Civil War and leading into Infinity War and Endgame and all that
Yeah,
other
they were
stuff.
getting so big that they literally said, "Hey, let's make characters that no one's ever heard of, like Z level characters,
Yep.
a team that consists of a rocket and a tree, and let's make these characters A-list
Oh, no
characters."
one knew before when Guardians was announced. No one knew what
I
that was.
only
I
knew,
shouldn't say no one, but the
yeah,
vast majority
yeah,
had no idea who the Guardians. I didn't know who the Guardians of
I
the
only
Galaxy
knew
were.
him because of the Avengers Earth's Mightiest Heroes animated show that came out, I think, a few years prior.
Yeah,
And they had an episode with those characters, and I
yeah,
was like, "Oh shit, yeah, definitely." And
yeah.
so,
But the big problem, like I say, with the DCEU is as soon as they saw that happening, it was like, okay, immediately we've got to get our Avengers type movie.
oh
Well,
yeah,
no. The reason that the MCU works is because they started off focusing on character movies. So you do the Iron Mans, the Thor, the Captain America. You build these characters and give them a fully fleshed out backstory on screen, not expecting your viewers, your fans to go and read 20, 30, 40 years worth of comic books and TV shows and previously made movies so that they have a backstory for these characters. You need they needed to do individual movies, whereas they write off. They did Man of Steel, great. That could have been Superman's origin movie. Then they could have made a Ben Affleck Batman, and then they did the Wonder Woman. But they did Man of Steel, went right into
Yeah.
BVS and Batman vs Superman,
Right into Batman and
and
Superman.
then and then go right in. They did Wonder Woman, and then went right into Justice League.
Which, okay.
All right, Aquaman. I believe Aquaman came out before Justice League, the original, the Joss Whedon version.
Did it come up before?
I believe I'll look at that right now because I know Justice League. I believe it was 2017 when it was originally, or 2018.
Aquaman came out.
So Justice League, the Joss Whedon version was 2017,
Yeah.
and Aquaman was 2018. So yeah, they did. They basically had two character movies, and then they threw Batman in with Superman and Batman versus
Well, the
Superman.
thing is, the DC execs, they're constantly changing their plans. I remember they did have a plan of having individual movies, or at least they had plans of having individual movies, at least during Justice League or before or after, whatever. If you okay, there is a way to introduce these characters and then branch off into movies if you go by the blueprint of the Justice League pilot episode of the animated series, because that's what they did. They introduced everybody in, well, they had two parts, so you had what, 40 something minutes, and they did it perfect.
Well, this movie takes about an hour,
right,
to do Cyborg and Flash. Which, if you want to do that, give them their own movie.
Yes.
Flash has a Flash. I feel Cyborg not so much, because Cyborg is more a much lower level in terms of the general fan base.
He was boosted up from the Titans.
Whereas Flash, I believe Flash at least has enough of a fan base that you're going to be able to sell a good amount of tickets to go for people to go see that in theaters before putting him in Justice League. Now, I have been a proponent of this for years. I was a big fan of a lot of the DC shows that were on the CW. I was a big fan of Arrow.
Remember Birds of Prey?
The movie? I never saw
the show.
It. No, I don't remember that.
There's a Birds of Prey show with like Huntress, who was like the daughter of Batman and Catwoman. She is the new Batman. Batman like dies or something. It was insane, but I watched it because I guess I was attracted to the women in the show. Remember Walking Tall?
Yep.
Remember the girl, Rock's girlfriend?
Yep.
She was the star.
Okay.
She was the Huntress. Yeah, that's why I recognized her. But
No,
yeah, I'm a huge fan of a lot of the DC CW run shows. Even going back to Birds of Prey, Smallville. I love Arrow.
See, I did Arrow. I did The Flash. I watched Supergirl.
Did you watch?
I couldn't get into Legends of Tomorrow. I couldn't get into that. But I mean, watching that, I've always been a proponent that the minute they said they were going to do a Justice League movie, and it was right away they didn't want a Green Arrow type character, which is fine.
Because he's just Batman.
Yeah, exactly.
So it's like whatever. Okay, you don't need.
But I mean, let's be honest. I mean, Stephen Amell was phenomenal in that show.
Yeah, but he was Batman.
Absolutely, he was. He was Batman.
Took on the Batman role.
Exactly. But when they came out, I personally thought that Grant Gustin was a fantastic version of the Flash.
Oh,
and when they announced that they were doing this and they were putting Flash in the Justice League movie and all this stuff, and at that time the Flash TV show was still going on. It just recently finished, I believe, but it was still going on. And I said to myself, I said to a bunch of my friends, I said, you know what? You've got this guy who's done a great job for so many seasons, and you've got this massive fan base behind this show. Why not just take him? You don't have to continue bringing the characters like Caitlin and Cisco and all that into the Justice League, but just take Grant Gustin, allow him to continue playing the Flash in Justice League. that would just bring those fans in, and it would allow him. He's already done the character for so
Of
long.
course. And
There's no audition process. There's no having to get into the mind of the character. He's already there. He's been there for 8, 9,
yeah, he
10
definitely
years.
understands the character and he could play it well. The only thing that I would say, let's cast another guy, is that would put so much strain and extra stress on Grant Gustin, the actor,
To do both.
to do both, because he's gonna continue doing the show.
Yeah, they would have
as
had
well
to.
as the movie.
They
So
would have had
really,
to end the show.
Yeah, they would have to end the show, which that would have definitely would have been a bad thing for
Yeah.
fans who consistently watch the show.
Yeah.
So that's the only reason why. Okay, I get why they didn't cast him as the movie DC EU Flash.
Yeah. Okay, well, that's the Flash. Now, what did you think of
Ezra Miller?
I
Now I have seen the Flash movie.
I have
So
not.
I can compare. Let's get out of the way. He runs the same in the Flash.
Nobody
That should have been the first thing they should have fixed. He doesn't run like a person runs. No one runs like that.
he looks like he's grabbing.
I don't even think the actor runs like that.
He looks like he's grabbing a ninja star or
yeah.
a knife or something out of his back pocket and flinging it
He's throwing batarangs.
It makes no sense. I mean, this is my own personal opinion now. This is a podcast for entertainment. I don't want to. I don't want to offend.
You gotta be real. Dude, you gotta give your opinion.
I think Ezra Miller is a terrible actor. Now, granted, I haven't seen him in a ton of things, but what I've seen him in, which is like this.
I think the movie role that people bring up, I think it's called The Importance of Being a Wallflower, or something like that.
I haven't seen that. That's what they say he's good in.
That's the movie that they reference. Like,
well, then I'm gonna have. I'll have to watch that because I haven't seen him do anything good.
Again, I've seen The Flash, so there are emotional scenes in that movie. This is not trying to spoil The Flash.
Well, spoiler alert.
Definitely not gonna spoil it.
Spoiler alert: The Flash is fast.
But the emotional parts of The Flash movie, I didn't really feel up until the one scene at the end where he's having a conversation with somebody, and I felt that in that, at least that scene, I recognize that yes, he has chops to be a good actor.
Did you feel that because now again I haven't seen this movie, so I don't know who he's talking to. Did you feel that because of him, or because of the actor he's working off of, or both?
I think mostly the actor he's working off of.
Well, that's the problem.
But it's it's also him too. It's like it's
a combination.
It's the context of the scene. You have to know who he's talking to understand. You know what I mean? But he isn't a terrible actor. It's just put in the proper role, he could smash it out of the park.
What's the proper role? Fantastic Beasts? Nope.
A role where he's playing, I don't know, man. Something that's more that is more personal to him, I guess. You know, he could play like he could play a quirky, sarcastic, weird loner. That's his wheelhouse.
But what's funny
is, other than that, I can't believe.
But you know what's funny is that's the Flash.
That is the Flash.
But he doesn't do that.
That's not even the Flash in the comic. That's not even his personality. They just, I guess they wanted.
That's the
to
more
make
modern.
him like a.
He's a fanboy.
Yeah, like some person with some type of anxiety.
You didn't finish the name, but the minute I heard you start saying Peter, you're right. He reminds me, especially his introduction in this movie, when Batman comes to his garage or whatever you want to call it,
ripped off,
and he catches the bat, whatever you want to call it, Ninja Star thing. He's right there with Tom Holland's Spider-Man and Tony Stark, and he the entire movie he just comes off as a fanboy, even of Batman. Of all of them. At the end, there's so many moments where he's just he's grinning ear to ear, and like even the scene that we joked was the slow motion team picture on top of the on top of the tower at the end when they're after they've defeated Steppenwolf. yeah, he just, I don't know. They do a slow pan across all of them, and he has got
This cheesy ass grin on
the
his face.
he must have had to ice his cheeks. He was smiling so big.
Well, that could be explained because he didn't have friends and he's got friends now.
I get
and he's
that.
extra because these are the people that he's at least heard of legend or admired, whatever.
I
But
get
like,
that. And now, don't get me wrong. I can't act to save my life, so I'm not. I'm. You know what I mean? But I completely respect him and what he does. I just don't think he's great at the roles he's had. Now, don't get me wrong. There could be a year, 5, 10 years from now, assuming he's still acting with whatever is going on with
I think he
his
will be,
with
man.
him.
I think he's untouchable.
He could get a role and absolutely knock it out of the park. I don't know, but I just haven't seen him in anything that I've really enjoyed. I guess that would be
Because
now.
he doesn't have that it factor, that
No,
charisma, that charm
but
that you should expect, at least from the Flash, or at least somebody who you would expect to be in that role.
you know what? Neither does Ray Fisher, in my opinion.
No, no,
I think Ray Fisher as Cyborg did a good job in
he's a
this
great. You
movie.
could tell he's a good actor because
He's a good actor.
Ray
He's a
Fisher,
very good actor.
Ray Fisher started as a theater. He's a theater actor,
Yes.
and it shows.
Oh,
It
absolutely,
shows in this movie because he's super emotional and like,
Sometimes too emotional.
yeah, like when he had this dialogue with his father talking about
The
how
great,
you're used to making monsters.
the great, his father, the great Joe Morton.
Oh, I just call him Terminator 2.
Oh, Miles Dyson.
Yeah, I call him Terminator 2. If I don't know you as an actor, I just name your
What you've
name
been
is
in.
the movie that I recognize you in, and he is Terminator 2.
The creator of
He's
Skynet.
the dead switch Terminator 2 scientist. But no, yeah. So it's Ray Fisher. I recognize that he's a great actor, but as Cyborg, he was too theater. Like he was literally like a theater actor
On
turning a
screen.
cyborg.
Now I don't know a ton about Cyborg. I don't. So
I don't know a huge amount, but I do know my reference is Teen Titans.
see the only real thing that I didn't watch Teen Titans. I've never really read a ton of like I say I've never been a big Justice League guy or um, I don't know a ton about Cyborg. So my big thing with him is I'm these what are they the new 52 DC animated movies that they've been coming out with for the past 10, 12 years, whatever. One of my favorites happens to be a Flash movie, and that's Flashpoint Paradox.
Yeah,
And that's where I really myself personally have gotten introduced into Cyborg. And I get that movie is
so it was just
it takes place it, considerably in the future, 10, 15, 20 years, whatever it is. And he just the way Cyborg is portrayed in that is he is completely stone faced. He's not emotional. He's by the book, by the rules. Everything has to be done this way, no matter what. And in this movie, is such a big contrast to that.
yeah.
He's so emotional to the point where it's almost debilitating.
Yeah, like he's always on the verge of either
And I
screaming on top of his lungs or crying.
and I get it. What the character goes through is horrific.
Yeah.
He should have died. His mother does die. He
Dude, how was he alive?
he
when
shouldn't. That's the thing.
How was he
shouldn't.
alive when he was on a fucking? He was on like what was that? He was on a wall.
He
How is he alive?
He loses what?
He doesn't have a torso.
He loses an arm, and he loses basically.
How did his father?
He keeps like the top third. It's almost like where your sternum starts is where he ends.
It's like they wanted to do RoboCop, but they went overboard. Like I don't. One of my biggest questions is how did they transport him from the hospital to that table?
Magic.
It seemed like there was more body parts when he was on the hospital bed than on the table. You know, like it was just one of many things that I had problems with. That kind of, I guess, they could be plot holes. It was just things that really bothered me about the movie.
I don't know if I'd call it a plot hole. I think I just call it ridiculous.
Lazy writing. They didn't really expect.
Well, it's Zack Snyder writing.
Well, is Chris Terrio was the writer.
I know.
So that man is he's special. I'll just say that he's special. He needs to go back to writing school.
Writing school. Well, okay. I will say here. I think we've. I'll bring something a little positive, and it's not. It is not the role of Aquaman. It is just the simple fact of one Mr. Jason Momoa on screen.
Yeah, he was bro man. He wasn't Aquaman. He was bro man.
I Jason again. I don't know much about Aquaman from the comics, but I still remember when he was cast for whether it be, I think it was Batman versus Superman, when they showed those stupid little videos that Lex Luthor had on his computer where he also names and gives them all their logos.
Yeah, the scene where he's like coming out of that hole with the trident. Yeah, he's definitely cast.
Well, so when that happened, they released pictures of all of these actors, and his was holding a trident, and he was like,
I remember it was
covered in armor, or and I remember
a trident that had like 5 points, so it wasn't a trident; it was like a 5 trident.
Yeah, but that's what he uses now. Yeah, that's what he doesn't use a trident. He uses basically an underwater pitchfork.
It's like with like 5
for lack
points.
of a better term.
Okay.
But so
I remember that picture. A lot of that stirred up a lot of people.
Well, absolutely.
I remember that photo.
So, but I remember when it came out, I showed my dad, and my dad, he liked comics and things like that. And I remember I showed it to him, and I said, "Yeah, this is the guy who's going to play the new Aquaman." And the first thing he said to me was, "Well, he's not blonde, and why? What's all this armor he's wearing?" He's like, "Aquaman has basically what is it? Green." What looks like green pants?
Green pants and like an orange scaly
shirt, and he rides a seahorse.
Yeah.
Now, of course, they're not. I don't think they're going to go. That's cartoony level. I don't think they're going to do that in this type of a movie. But I mean, you take. It's one thing to say, like I said, about disrespecting the creators of Superman when you change what the symbol on his chest means. You are basically taking Aquaman, and I get it. Jason Momoa is a complete badass. He's a good actor. Everybody, he's hugely popular. But I mean, even now at the time, but you do that, and it's like they created him to look a certain way, to be a certain way, and it's. I get changing things because of popularity, but that is so far.
It's a completely 180 change.
If they wouldn't have referred to him as Aquaman, I don't think, even the fact that he was living underwater in Atlantis, I don't think people would have been like, well, that's clearly Aquaman, because it just doesn't make any sense. Now, I mean, I enjoyed him in this movie. I liked the Aquaman movie, personally. I didn't love it. I thought it was decent. I thought it was pretty good.
I liked it. It was. I liked it.
It's so weird, like the way that. That's one of my notes is. I don't understand now. Do you? How much have you read about Aquaman in the comics?
Not much.
Do you know how they communicate in Atlantis underwater?
I think they just talk.
Okay.
Honestly,
see why? Why is
no bubbles involved?
Why? What is with these bubbles?
I think that was the Zack Snyder thing. That was the thing that I remember when that happened.
But that would be like
questioning it.
That would be like us surface folk. That would be like us having to create something to be able to speak to one another. Well, that doesn't make any sense.
They were all, I guess.
If you can breathe underwater, you can talk underwater.
Yeah, I guess Zack Snyder was just.
I don't
explain why.
I would
If their
love
mouth is open, then the water should rush right into their mouth.
I would
This
love
is
to
very
actually be able
Hispanic.
to ask him or ask Chris Terrio or somebody who was involved in this movie and just be like, why did you guys make some of the choices that you made, and this is one of them? Because I can't wrap my head around it, and I've tried to come up with a good explanation. Like, I just don't. I mean, I think the only thing that I can think of is when Steppenwolf comes. That's another character we haven't even talked about yet.
Oh,
But when Steppenwolf comes to get the mother box from Atlantis, one of the ways that they try and fight him is they create one of those bubbles, and gravity just takes over, and he drops 80 feet or whatever it is to the ground. That's the only reason that I can think of why they would have put this in there, is to show that they can do this.
yeah, it's completely unnecessary. Yeah.
And the whole idea of Atlantis is it could be really cool.
Yeah, you could tell like the writer or whoever
Set designer.
whoever was involved with that decision of making them make bubbles in order to talk. Never read an Aquaman comic in their life. If they would have known that they just talked, and that would have saved you
Or
lots of time and money.
or watched anything where people are underwater. I mean, I grew up through the Disney animated Renaissance. I've seen Little Mermaid 1,000 times. I don't think they're talking inside air bubbles down
No, they're
there.
just talking.
Exactly. I get they're it's a whole different thing, but it just doesn't make
Yeah,
sense.
it's something you can, you know,
We are a
you
lot
don't
more
have to make
negative than I assumed.
too realistic. Like, let's just
No,
have
and
it the
that's what
way
it is. It's almost like he made it realistic.
because
Like,
they have to create a bubble every single time.
yeah,
It seems like it's too much work.
I don't remember them doing.
inconvenient.
I don't remember them doing that in the Aquaman movie.
No, they didn't. They totally changed that.
That's what I mean.
I think James Wan
Because right
mentioned
now
it
I'm
in an
thinking
interview that they were not doing that.
I'm thinking I'm seeing Patrick Wilson with the sharks and the whole thing, and they're talking back and forth. But
Yeah, they retconned a lot. They retconned a lot from other
but
solo movies.
but
The
then how does
Flash
that
2,
make
they retconned.
how does that make sense? Because aren't they still they're still doing Aquaman 2?
Yep.
So what are they going to do with that? Are they all of a sudden going to go back and be like, oh yeah, that was just for the I don't know why.
Well, they're just going to continue what they did in Aquaman 1, just talking underwater.
That's what I
I
mean.
think it's one of
That's
those things
that's
where
a continuity
they
thing.
just won't mention it because the people that care about it are boobs like us. Nitpick every single thing in the movie. So it's like one of those things where they're like, you know what? Whatever.
I think that
Come at us, bro, if you are really upset about this.
Well, I
We
mean,
don't care.
so that's the thing. I like Jason Momoa and the way he plays it. I just some of the things were a
It's
little
the wrong energy. That energy should have been Lobo. He is the perfect Lobo character because that is Jason Momoa. So to give him almost a different, like his character a character that should have been, you give it to Aquaman. It just, and I like Jason Momoa. I didn't hate him as the character. I just wish that it was more comic accurate. To be honest, that's my personal opinion.
well. Comic accurate is not the way I would describe the next and final member of the Justice League, and that's Ben Affleck's Batman, or what's
No,
many people have referred to as the Batfleck. And I'll be honest, I I personally love Ben Affleck as Batman.
I recognize the potential that
I'm a big Ben
he
Affleck
could
fan,
have
though. I don't know
had.
why.
I personally would have liked Ben Affleck's Batman if he was cast earlier on in his career as Batman. I believe.
Okay, just watch Daredevil.
I think that when he was casted as Batman, he at that time still he's bigger than the role of Batman. I don't see Batman.
You see Ben
I
Affleck.
see Ben Affleck.
Yeah, but you can make
But
that
it's
argument with Jason Momoa.
yeah, yeah. But for me, it's more so for Batman Ben
Well, Ben Affleck's been around
Yeah.
longer,
So
and us growing up in the '90s, we've seen
yeah, we've seen
a
a lot,
lot
of
of Ben
I've seen a
Affleck.
lot of Ben Affleck. So at this point, he's bigger than the character itself. You know.
But see, I personally I really like his portrayal of Batman, and I think a lot of
I
that
don't
is
hate it.
because I love Batman. Batman is one of my favorite comic book characters, which is funny because my so that means that Ben Affleck has played two of my favorite characters because my favorite Marvel character is Daredevil.
He also played Superman. You know what?
When did he play Superman?
He played Superman.
If this is a voice, I don't count it.
Well, he played
No,
George Reeves in
Okay.
Hollywoodland, which was
Did you see him in a suit?
Yeah.
In a Superman suit?
Yeah.
Okay, I'm gonna have to check that out then. But no, like I say, it's Batman in DC is probably my favorite of DC, and my favorite Marvel character is Daredevil, who Ben Affleck infamously played. And I remember when after he did that movie, he said he would never do another superhero movie because of what he went through with that. And then when he was announced for this, I was a little I was cautious, not even for this. I'm sorry for Batman v Superman. I was a little cautious, but I'm at the point when it comes to movie casting and things like that that I am open to anybody playing any role. I learned my lesson when I saw The Dark Knight. Um,
Yeah, sure. No one.
when he was announced, Heath Ledger. I mean, of course, everybody's had this conversation. When Heath Ledger was announced for the Joker, everybody thought this is ridiculous.
Oh yeah.
And then he knocked it out of the park. So I know there's that potential for every actor to do that. But I do. I like Ben Affleck's portrayal. I like that gruff, grizzled veteran.
Yeah, the guy who's been.
He's been doing it for so long that he's almost like I've seen it all.
Yeah, he's almost numb at this point.
Well, and especially we see in that epilogue nonsense with Jared Leto's Joker, the reference to
Robin.
to Jason Todd
Oscar Robin.
in the Death of the Family comic. Um, it just it shows how he's, for lack of a better term, gone through the shit for so long.
Oh yeah, I would have definitely taken his.
I would love to have seen a
I would-
Batman solo movie with him, like they were supposed
Yeah.
to do, that he was going to direct, and then it got
And let's
derailed.
get out of the way. The greatest Batman cinematic scene of all time will be Ben Affleck's scene in the warehouse in Batman vs Superman. That is the most Batman scene I've ever seen. It's almost a complete rip from the video games, the Arkham series.
Yes.
Come to live action, which is phenomenal. So when you saw that scene, you saw the potential that was there, and for it to just turn into nothing is a huge disappointment. Because I even though all I see is Ben Affleck, I would have loved to see his version of
His vision.
his solo movie,
Yeah.
because there was a lot of hype.
Well, and also
around the details of that movie.
and also it sets up in this movie that the villain was going to be Deathstroke.
Yeah.
Played by Joe Manganiello,
Yeah.
or Manganiello, who I'm another big fan of. And I thought that movie, just the concept of that could have been so interesting and so entertaining to
There would have been
see.
a better movie than Batman. I'll tell you that.
You didn't like the Batman?
I didn't. I think I liked it. It was decent. It wasn't special. I won't
Rush out
probably
and see it again.
No, probably not. I'll watch maybe a scene or two on YouTube.
That, as dark as I like Batman, it was almost a little too much. But this isn't about the Batman. We'll probably do another
Yeah.
episode on that movie in
Anything
the
to do
future.
with Justice League or DC, it always comes down to Batman.
Always.
Ugh.
Well, no, not ugh.
I don't even hate Batman. I just like he's oversaturated to the point where it's a bit annoying, to be honest. But
I get that because I felt
I'll
that way
never-
about Superman. In the
I'll never
past.
hate Batman. I'll never hate Batman. I just can't. I'm too tied to superheroes to hate him.
Well,
But I recognize that. Yeah, he's too much.
So this is a little. I mean, we've been recording now almost an hour, and we haven't even brought up Steppenwolf, Darkseid,
Yeah.
the mother boxes, what the anti-life equation,
Well, yeah, that's
and I mean, I just there's so much in this movie. Like now,
yeah,
I now what I so I was watching this movie, and my wife happened to be in the room, and when Darkseid came up, she looked at me and she goes, "Well, that's just the same idea as Thanos." And I understand Darkseid came first and the whole thing, but I kind of was thinking as she said that the character of Thanos in the MCU, he at least was present when things were happening. He did have his minions and this
yeah,
and
yeah.
that,
He was the
but he was
man
at least there. Whereas the way they
on
portrayed
insurance.
Darkseid in this movie, he he's not he's on his own planet and communicates through his henchman Desaad, who I think looks awful the way they had him
Yeah,
in the movie. But he he's oh, you're my little lackey, my minion that you're a disappointment. I want you to go and you. What does he say? I owe him 50,000
which
worlds or
is
something. Which
an absurd amount of worlds. Like,
and all these.
what is that? Is there that many worlds even in this existence? That's a lot of worlds, bro.
But the whole thing is he's so the movie starts and Steppenwolf is looking for these mother boxes. And what it is the mother boxes when you combine them and they synchronize,
Terraform the
they
planet.
terraform the planet to be exactly. They terraform the planet to be like Darkseid's home planet. But then while they're there, they have what is it, a vision
There's who? Yeah, definitely
to
Ben
sh-
Affleck has a vision, but also Cyborg has vision. So
to
I don't
show
know.
that that Earth is the
Oh yeah,
location
and
of this
Steppenwolf has a vision.
anti-life. What is it? It's
Anti-life equation.
anti-life equation.
They just called it anti-life.
Which now, as I was watching this, are we supposed to think that every world has their own mother boxes? Because how do they terraform these other planets of these 100,000 that
I think we're led to believe that. Yeah, they didn't
he's
really
already
explain that
conquered?
they have different mother boxes. Each planet has their own boxes.
But
I
then
think we're led to believe that, but they didn't did a piss poor job of explaining it.
oh,
If
they didn't explain it at all.
they didn't explain it at all, so
But then
I
the
guess we're
movie,
supposed to believe that.
the main MacGuffin that Steppenwolf is going after is these mother boxes. Well, then halfway through the movie, it's oh well, this planet has the anti-life equation. Okay, you have to explain that. You have to if you bring something up that's this is now the new goal, the new MacGuffin that we need to get or get to. You need to explain what it is.
Yeah, and only people who know DC know about the anti-life equation and how important it is to Darkseid. It's like the precious to Bolt. It's his everything. His one goal is to get this anti-life equation, and they didn't really explain it at all. The importance of it to Darkseid and the portrayal of Darkseid in this movie. Again, I compare all iterations to the animated version. Is weak. He wasn't. He does have most of his lackeys do all his bidding, but it's because he's such a powerful being that he wouldn't waste his time with such meaningless unless he is absolutely needed. There wasn't any. I didn't feel the gravitas that I should with Darkseid. He didn't feel as powerful as he normally is. He just seemed slightly less, slightly more powerful than Steppenwolf to me.
Well, and I mean, and
He's supposed
Step,
to be leagues more powerful.
but that's the thing. I mean, they didn't even portray Steppenwolf as. I mean, Steppenwolf was battling Aquaman and Wonder Woman, and he was kind of holding his own. And then all of a sudden, Superman shows up and
Oh
basically
yeah,
snaps his fingers, and Steppenwolf is reduced to a child,
they
basically.
definitely set him up to be powerful in the scene where, on the against the Amazons when they're uh, keeping the box
Oh,
away from him,
absolutely.
where he's just laying waste to everyone, catching up to the mother boxes, killing Amazonians. You could see, okay, this guy is a problem. This guy's a threat. But as you watch the movie and as he is more shown and battling the Justice League, he's whooping everyone else's ass up until Superman. As soon as he fights Superman, he instantly becomes like nothing,
Yeah,
fodder, like the super weak and completely unimportant, almost in an instant.
yeah. Because Superman shows up and it's just there's nothing, and it's not close. It's like, yeah, there's no match for me, so we're
He
just
didn't
gonna do
even stand
this.
a chance, which he should at least got some licks in to make at least the scene, I guess, more impactful for Superman. But the fact that Superman just, with almost zero effort, completely take down, I guess, one of the most powerful beings in the universe next to Darkseid was laughable.
Oh, absolutely. And I mean, just the way that I don't know. I didn't. I thought that there were certain times where the design of Steppenwolf looked kind of interesting. Like I didn't mind the spiky armor,
He
the
is
things
like
like that,
a porcupine transformed being.
but again, and everybody's going to do this because the MCU is so big. Every time I saw him with those horns or whatever you want to call them, all I could see was Surtur from the beginning of Thor Ragnarok, and it completely took me out of any of him being any kind of menacing
Or even
or
like
anything like that.
the forgettable bad guy in Thor 2: The Dark World. Not the main guy, but he had a right hand man who was like kind of looked like Steppenwolf.
I, I've
Don't
only
even remember him because he's completely forgettable.
I've
But
only seen that movie once,
yeah,
Thor: The Dark World, and
you only need to see it once.
I remember none of that movie. That movie to me is basically unwatchable, and I probably will never attempt it
I'll have to
again.
rewatch it just to like. I'd have to revisit it just to compare it to movies. You know what I've been through, what I've seen, that what the MCU is. I'd have to rewatch it just to see if I have a newfound appreciation for it. But I won't have a newfound appreciation for some of the characters in Dark World, which is the reason why I dislike it so much.
But I mean, like, I don't know. It's hard for me to find positive things about the way this movie was made. Apart from like we've
There are
said
very
about
few.
some of the actors in that, I just there's not much of it, and I have a hard time. I don't think I've now seen this movie twice, and the way that I look at it is this movie's 4 hours and 2 minutes. So the way I look at it is that is 8 hours of my life that I am just never going to get
That's a
back.
full shift of work.
That yeah, that's a full shift, and I got nothing for it. I didn't even get entertainment.
Now I liked it slightly better than him. I found at least more positives, or at least things that I liked a little bit more. Like I liked Wonder Woman's intro scene. I thought that was very well handled. It was overcooked when Diana was talking to that little girl. I think they were they were trying to make her a little bit like Superman in that scene,
That's
which
exactly what it is.
is exactly what fine, whatever. I just thought that was unnecessary, but overall, I liked that scene. I also liked Darkseid's intro, only because the uh, different, the humans, the
Which Dark Side
Amazonians,
intro?
the one where he
In the Age of
first
Heroes
first yeah
CGI
where he first
nonsense battle?
invades Earth against the the old gods and the Amazons and the Atlanteans and the humans. I like that scene personally, and the lanterns too.
I can
I like
see
that.
what there is to like about it. I just that that whole that whole part to me,
What
it's
the goal that Zack Snyder was accomplished making that scene,
was
I
using
understood
more
it.
CGI
I
than ever
understood it.
before.
I understood what he was going for with that scene.
Oh, I'm not saying
And I
he didn't
appreciate the
accomplish what he
fact
wanted.
that Zack Snyder actually uses like bodybuilders and like tough, muscular people for the roles, only because that's what we see in the comic books. So I appreciate certain things that Zack Snyder does, especially the look of the characters. Another positive thing that I liked, even though a lot of people probably don't, is the fact that how he sets up a shot. I think it's very clean, even though it is surrounded. Like you can totally tell they're on a soundstage, surrounded completely by CG.
No.
The, I can appreciate. I personally can appreciate how clean the shot looks, more so than I guess the average person.
I mean,
I recognize the cinematography. I liked it.
I mean, you're right.
I recognize that it was, artificial and fake, but I still enjoy it.
You're
At the
right.
same
He
time.
he definitely knows how to make things look
Yeah,
good.
he does
And
definitely. It's one of his very few positives of Zack Snyder. He knows how to make things look good.
except for slow mo.
Except for he just overuses it. He
Absolutely.
overuses it when
Absolutely.
it's completely unnecessary to the point where it's just it. No wonder why the movie is 4 hours because you use so much slow mo
And
that
so much building
it
towards
draw
things
it
that don't
drew
matter.
out the movie
I mean, I
to
will
be
say
4 hours.
there were some other scenes that I did enjoy, like um,
Yeah, I will never be a person that completely hates a movie. I will never be that person.
no, I don't hate this
There's
movie.
a lot
I
of people who
dislike a
review
lot of it.
movies that are nothing but negative and hatred. I can't.
No, I want to try. That's too depressing. I want
Yeah.
to try and find things
Most
that I
movies
like.
I can at least find an enjoyment out of. Some enjoyment, something that, especially comic book movies. If you can give me even a scene or two of comic book ness,
Spawn.
I I can't hate you. It's just I can't. I can be disappointed. I cannot like it,
That's true.
but to hate it, that's just something I can't.
That's true. I will say there are scenes in this movie that I think work really well. One of them I have actually written in my notes here is when when Superman is walking through the ship and you hear Jor-El's voice talking to him, and over his shoulder and kind of in the background you see all the little, not portals, but almost like a, I don't even know what to describe it as, but they open up and all of the different iterations of his Superman suit are like
Oh yeah,
levitating out and coming in, and it's
fair choice.
exactly, it's, I mean, I made a joke about it when we were watching it of he's just looking for what to wear on his as his Sunday best, but it just, I like the way that scene is shot, and then it goes into him with the black suit
Yeah.
and the levitating rocks that I had mentioned earlier.
And apparently, once you go black, you don't go back because he sticks with that black suit, which I didn't realize. I thought he was going to go back to his regular suit, but that's just his default suit now, which is like whatever, man. I get it because of the comics, but
Well, yeah, Venom came through in the multiverse with
it
Doctor
latched
Strange.
itself like Spider-Man 3, while he's sleeping, it just latches on him as he's having a moment. But
Oh,
no,
this-
I just if he wanted to choose that suit, whatever. I mean, it doesn't make sense to me, or at least they didn't really explain why he chose that suit over his actual suit that he had in Man of Steel. Sure.
I liked the black suit. I think it looked really cool. Um, I don't know. I
Oh, it
just
does look cool. That's why they.
and that's why I like. I mean, don't
Chose
get
it.
me wrong. I like the traditional blue with the red, but again, I think a lot of it came down to Zack Snyder and his muted color
Oh, it
palette.
was so muted. Oh
I
my
mean,
goodness.
like we discussed,
Watching the
you
other
watch
movies with the same characters directed by other people,
completely
you
different.
it's like they're not even the same characters,
No,
even though
well,
they're portrayed by the same people.
like you had brought up when we were watching it, you watch Aquaman and you see Mira in her bright
Oh man,
green
yeah, she's a
outfit
bright.
with bright, and I mean
Yeah,
bright red hair, and then you watch this and it's almost like she's wearing gray.
she's got like strawberry blonde hair almost,
Exactly.
not even close to red.
Well, it's like Aquaman is that was day one of the hair dye, and then this is like a month later
Yeah, it's
when
like
it's all growing out and
it's like
it's faded.
the Aquaman movies was even it's like set, even though it's the same universe, it's set in a different universe. How it's the look of the characters is different.
Yeah.
And I think they do retcon some stuff from this, obviously the bubble and the water and all that, but there's other things that they retconned, at least from the Justice League to Aquaman. And there's certain things of this movie that they retconned for the Flash,
Okay.
specifically the way he
Ep, ep, ep,
handles.
ep, ep, ep.
No, it's not really just that. Just how he handles people while he's in his Speed Force, while he's doing super speed stuff, how he manipulates things while in that mode. There are two different rules in each movie,
Yeah.
which is I mean, there's no connectivity, which
No, and that's the thing is this is
kind
supposed to
of
be.
disappointing.
They literally refer to it as an extended universe where everything is supposed to be connected and the same,
That
and
seems like a different universe.
it does. It's and again, that's a big thing with where Marvel has them beat is they have, and it's the same thing. It goes back. It's even the same thing that I've said about the newer Star Wars trilogy. Is there's no. It doesn't seem like there's anybody who's kind of manning the ship at the top. Like you've got Marvel's got Kevin Feige, and I know that Star Wars has Kathleen Kennedy and all that, but you,
Yeah,
you,
that's the thing.
you don't have one person overseeing it with
No,
one overlaying vision of like this is where we're going to go with this character and these ones and everybody's going to come together like this. It's basically just, oh, we're going to make this movie. Okay, you go direct it how you want, and you go direct this movie how you want, and when we bring them together we're going to get a third director
yeah.
and do something
You could
different.
tell these movies are being controlled by
A
a
studio,
chairman, like
a
a
studio,
board of shareholders,
yeah,
of company
who
owners
can't agree on anything
who
and just
ultimately
that's what it
have the
seems like.
decisions, and they're all old men who are out of touch, who only go by basically like the trends. Who's popular? Oh, Aquaman's popular, or Jason Momoa's popular. Let's just cast him as Aquaman or something. You know what I mean? It's just and again, yeah, they didn't have any plans. They kind of just were rolling with the punches as they were happening.
But again, that's part of where I come to is had they done these movies individually, you could focus on these characters and
Yeah,
build them out more. Whereas this, it felt like we need this movie to be an action movie at heart. Where the way I've always looked at it is when you bring a new character in any type of movie, but in this case they're comic book superhero movies. When you bring somebody in, that first movie doesn't need to be boring or a drama, but it needs to focus more on the development of the character, not so
yeah.
much the action
It at least has to let you know who these characters are
and
and what
why
they're about.
they do what they do.
You don't need hours and hours and hours to show that because the Justice League cartoon has already proven that. It's the pilot episode. You just need to establish those things but it seems like a lot. At least Zack Snyder feels like he needs way more time to establish how these characters, who these characters are, and what makes them their characters.
Yeah.
When you can, it doesn't take that much. It just takes good writing, and I don't feel like that is in this movie at all. To
No.
be honest, if there is, it's sprinkled in. It's sprinkled in when you have moments like the Wonder Woman intro scene, but it should have been way more. And ultimately, as much as I like the DC characters, I found not as much enjoyment out of this movie as I should. I should have loved this movie. I should have loved this movie. Should have been a $2-3 billion movie because of how iconic these characters are, and I feel like they just gave the keys to the wrong tribe.
See, what I don't, I mean, I, like I said, I'm not a fan of this movie. Yes, there were things I liked about it, but overall, it does not measure up to where I feel it had the potential to go.
No,
Which is why so I did some looking before this, and it's rated on IMDb an 8 out of 10. That to me is insane.
yeah,
The critic score on
that makes
Rotten
no sense.
the critic score on Rotten Tomato is 72, which I still think is very high, and yet the audience score, I don't know how this is possible. The audience score is 93%.
Well, it is possible because the fan base of Zack Snyder is very, very passionate and strong with Zack Snyder, and they will rally and join hands and do whatever they have to do. Obviously, I would say they're manipulating, but they will definitely. They had some type of influence in these scores because I know how passionate
Well, I'm
these
gonna
Zack Snyder fans. They call it. I'm not calling it, but they do call it a cult. They call it the Snyder cult.
yes.
And when you are established as a cult, like they were, it means that yeah, you have some influence on the way things are, or at least passionate enough to have influence, or at least to make influence in scores.
Well, I'm going to ask you this: is this movie, in your opinion, would you rather watch this or Man of Steel, another Snyder movie, another superhero?
I would rather watch Man of Steel.
Okay, I figured you'd say that because I would as well. That on
I
Rotten
have my own problems with that.
that on Rotten Tomatoes, a critic score of 56% and an audience score of 75%.
That makes more sense. I would. That seems to me what Justice League should be.
But that's what I mean. That why like I think Man of Steel is a better movie, and yet it's a 20 some point, almost 20-point difference in the fan, or
I
20-point
think
percentage difference in the fan ratings. I don't get that.
I think part of that, I went off with this later, but I think part of that too is also just the fact that they're the Justice League. They're iconic characters that have been around since the late 30s. Some of them,
I was gonna say
most
some
of
of
them,
them, yeah.
some 40s, some 50s. But these are some of the oldest heroes around. So they each character has their own individual fan base. So I think it's the love of the characters,
In general,
not even the movie, just the characters themselves, that also is the reason why that has such a boost
yeah.
in rating.
Well, I mean, long like we've been talking about this for a while. Long story
Yeah,
short,
we just wrap it up.
the good guys win.
Oh my goodness.
They are defeated, but then,
I was rooting for Dark Side.
but no, hold on. Before we wrap this up, we've got to talk about that post-apocalyptic
I don't want
nonsense
to.
I,
want to talk about it.
I didn't want to watch it.
I've heard about the nightmare scene even before, the cinematic cut. It was because of the vision Bruce Wayne had in Batman vs Superman. This was always inevitable, and the outcome was
It's bad. I mean, it's.
just
You go from.
disappointing, unnecessary.
I get that you're not supposed to understand what's going on, but you get Batman carrying a rifle. You get the Flash with some kind of metal
Armor.
Iron Man helmet
He's Iron Man now.
suit, and
It
then
didn't even
you.
look like it. To me, it didn't even look like Ezra Miller that
Oh,
much.
that's because they gave him like a 5 o'clock shadow.
Oh yeah, okay.
Then there's no Aquaman. He apparently has been killed because now we just have Mira.
That part of the world's probably dried up. Probably no water.
There's no Wonder Woman.
Oh yeah, she got burned.
And yet somehow you have Deathstroke, who in the scene before that we see is vowing vengeance on Batman with Lex Luthor. But then you turn and I will say this is I told you this when we watched it. There is one part of that I actually like, and it's because of the love I have for the character
Where's
of
Cleavage?
Batman. Well,
I can watch that all day. Give me 4 hours of that.
no, it's when she says what he did to Arthur. So obviously, whoever they're referring to killed Arthur.
I'm assuming the vision that I think Cyborg had when he was touching the mother box, the fact that Wonder Woman, she was being burned, like a funeral.
Yeah.
I think that was the thing that happened before that scene. I don't know.
It's
man.
possible, but like I say, what the one thing that I liked about it is she's referring to what he did to Arthur, and
Yeah, because Darkseid put the hell out of him in that vision too.
well, she's saying to Bruce, to Batman, like, what have you ever loved? And he slowly turns his head and he stares at
the love of his life.
At the Joker. I mean, honestly, if you really look at a lot of the Batman comics, everything like that, they may not love each other, but I have always believed that Batman and the Joker are almost like a soulmate type of connection where
Oh yeah, they are
they
the yin
one
and yang. They are
one can't exist without
no,
the
they
other.
are the same, two sides of the same coin.
And it's even said in by Heath Ledger's Joker in The Dark Knight when he says, "Why would I want to kill you? What would I do without you? You complete me." Like and it's so true. The way those characters are written, they're both batshit crazy, psychotic on two completely opposing levels, and they do, and that's and what they're referring to when he looks at the Joker is because they're referencing the Jason Todd, Death in the Family, whatnot.
Yeah.
But I just like the way that I like the way that shot is framed, where he just slowly turns his head, and then you see kind of a half behind, half side profile of Jared Leto's Joker. But then, I mean, they go. Then that whole scene gets ruined when Jared Leto opens his mouth and he starts referring to to Batman. If you kill me, who's going to give you a reach around and what that like that? It made no sense. But then, of course, this dream sequence is ended with they're not fighting Darkseid, they're fighting Superman.
For some reason.
Well, I think the whole thing is Batman let Lois die somehow, and now Superman has just scorched the earth. Which
so wasn't there a nightmare sequence in Batman vs Superman where he had that vision of Superman killing? Wasn't there a scene where Superman
it was something
swoops down and
yes
walks up to Superman or Batman and kills him? Is
yes,
that the same
it
part
was
of that same world?
It was something like that, and for some reason, but then again, you get the Flash popping up in his dream saying Lois Lane is the key.
Is that
She's
real?
the key. I don't know. I don't know. In
don't
Batman v
know.
Superman, there are so many scenes. I don't know what's a vision, what's a dream, what's a memory, what's
Because
a wish. I don't
tells
know.
Wonder Woman that he had a dream of this happening, but it's like, is it a dream or did it? Is it real? Did it really happen? I understand Lois was the key to help Clark when he was brought back to life to regain his memories. And
Yeah,
if she wasn't there to regain the memories, he would have probably have killed a lot of people.
I don't know.
So
But
maybe that would have started the path of him being that type of Superman that would have destroyed the world. But
yeah,
I don't know. They didn't explain it.
but again,
I'm just writing this in this headcanon that I have.
I don't know. This could have been Darkseid took over the world and Superman joined him,
Yeah, because they also hinted that he was like his right hand man, or
now
something.
Superman is just using this time and the world being destroyed to go. I don't know.
Yeah, this scene was poorly explained and
The movie should
forcefully put in.
the movie should have ended after you get the shot, what I refer to as the slow mo team photo.
Yeah,
That should have been the end. This 20-minute epilogue should never have happened.
Yeah, this movie took a page from Fast X and had like 2, 3 different endings.
No. You go with the original. Well, my original.
Lord of the Rings,
Return of the King. Now, I love those movies. They're some of my favorites, but Return of the King has like 5 different endings.
I had to have to rewatch it to compare, but I remember like Fast X. Okay, because it was the latest one I've seen. I literally was gonna get it, and then I was like, okay, they're starting a whole new scene. I thought it was generally done.
Return of the King, they've got
Not the extended edition.
no, even the original. They've got Frodo waking up in Rivendell. Then they've got Aragorn being crowned. Then they've got them going on the ships to the like. It just keeps going and going. I saw that movie in theaters with my brother, and when we walked out, that's what he said. He's like, "That movie had like 8 fucking endings. What was going on?" But I digress. Anyways,
Yeah, we'll rant.
so we're gonna wrap this episode up. What what are your closing thoughts on this, and what would you? I think we'll do. What do you think? A rating out of 10, out of 5. What do you want to do?
I thought this movie, like I'll say it again, this literally should have made, because of the characters and the fan base and how iconic old these characters are, should have made $2-3 billion. So the fact that it didn't even get close, I think it made $700 something million.
That's it.
Is
That's combining it with.
That's a worldwide total. It's abysmal.
That's combining it with the 2017 version too.
Yeah, it didn't even make $1 billion.
This movie wasn't released in theaters. I will add that this was an HBO Max special.
Yeah.
Sorry to cut you off. You continue.
Yeah. But I love these characters. I am a huge fan of DC and their universe. So the fact that they mishandled these characters was a huge disappointment. And I put the blame mostly on Zack Snyder, Chris Terrio, the writer. Given that, and I do love these characters, I found enjoyment in some scenes, probably more than the majority of people. So, even still, the bad definitely outweighed the good. So my score for this is a 5.5 out of 10. I was gonna say 5, but I liked more scenes than or like the average person. So my score is 5.5.
Okay. I totally respect that, and like you say, I agree. This movie had the potential to be as big, if not bigger,
Potentially the biggest movie in the world.
than something like Endgame or a Star Wars movie or one of those big epics. It just I feel that Zack Snyder dropped the ball, and I get what I'm not holding this. I mean, I get what he went through personally and all that other stuff. But I think regardless of before that ever happened, this was still his vision.
Yeah.
And I can't defend it. to me, yes, there are things that I enjoyed. Yes, there are characters I enjoyed. There are shots that I enjoyed. Things like that. I think it part, and I don't want to say it boils down to me not being a Zack Snyder fan. I mean that I'm sure that affects it, but I just I don't. The way I look at it, the way I view my enjoyment of movies is how likely am I to rewatch this, and how frequently would I like if I really like a movie, am I gonna? Oh, I might watch it 2 3 days later. I don't know if I am ever, and I mean ever, gonna have the compulsion to watch this movie again.
I will only rewatch the Wonder Woman intro scene and Dark Side intro scene on YouTube, and I have done that already many times.
Yeah. No, I just so for that I have to give this movie a four,
Ooh.
a 4 out of 10.
Damn.
I can't do it, and I that might seem harsh, but hey, I
That's your opinion. It's your opinion.
that's what I mean.
Yeah,
And like I say, there are
I
things
get it.
there are things I like about it. I just that's where I've got to go as a four, and yeah, that's it. So thank you everybody for listening, and this has been Geeked Out, and hopefully we'll see you for our next episode. We're not sure what it's going to be yet, but we do have a Facebook, or sorry, not a Facebook, a Twitter page where I'll post up some stuff with what we're hopefully got coming down the pike, and that's you can follow us at geeked_podcast. And this has been Geeked Out, and we will see you guys next time. Thank you.
Yeah.
Bye bye.